massive hit to northwestern Ontario's forestry sector as another sawmill is closing its doors, at least for now. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Ryan Bonazzo. A devastating blow to the economy of the small community of Ear Falls. The mayor says the town's sawmill is being shut down indefinitely. Interfor, the BC corporation that owns the sawmill, is using softer language, saying that operations are being temporarily curtailed and the situation will be evaluated week to week. Still, it's the latest sign of trouble for the hard-hit forestry sector, which is now grappling with a crippling 45% softwood lumber tariff imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump. Ear Falls Mayor Kevin Cahoot posted this to Facebook on Thursday night, saying, quote, "The announcement of an indefinite shutdown at the Ear Falls sawmill is heartbreaking news for our town." He goes on to say that the town is in contact with Premier Doug Ford and Associate Forestry Minister Kevin Holland. Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association President Rick Dumas says his organization will also continue working with senior levels of government.
How do we make things better? How do we get less red tape? And I know government's reducing red tape, diversification in the wood industry. How do they utilize more of that product and diversifying within the industry itself and getting that wood to the market? And of course, we know what's impacting a lot of our industry right now is tariffs. You know, with the tariffs and the impact of that, and we have to get through that. And we know that Prime Minister Carney's been working with, President Trump. And Premier Ford said clearly, like, we got to get this guy out of there because the reality is he's impacting Canada.
Unifor, which represents Ear Falls sawmill workers, is also calling for immediate government actions. The news of the shutdown comes as part of a broader announcement from Interfor on Friday that it's reducing overall lumber production by 26% this quarter, citing persistently weak market conditions and ongoing economic uncertainty. That announcement made no mention of U.S. tariffs. Meanwhile, there's good news for the industry further east in Kapuskasing. The Ontario and federal governments have each announced financial support for the paper mill there. Ontario is investing an additional $16.8 million to keep hundreds of workers on the job. And Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu announced today that the federal government will provide Cap Paper with a $12 million loan. Well, speed cameras, homelessness, and the broader housing crisis. Those are just some of the topics discussed by the mayors of some of the province's largest cities at the Ontario Big City Mayors meeting in Thunder Bay this week. Jessica Clement stopped in at the Prince Arthur Hotel where those conversations took place.
Ontario's big city mayors are in Thunder Bay this week, tackling major municipal issues at their 2025 meeting. One of the bigger topics of discussion, red light cameras. It's been a particular sore spot in southern Ontario after the Premier moved to ban them, calling them a tax grab. But public safety advocates disagree. Here's what Big City Mayor's chair, Marianne Mead-Ward, had to say.
Our members really are wanting to hopefully strike a balance with the Premier. We've heard the concerns that he's raised about the cameras. We've put some suggestions together for how to scope and tweak the program to limit it. We think there's a way to improve the program short of an outright ban.
Officials from 29 municipalities were in attendance, representing over half of Ontario's population. This year's agenda also included discussions about homelessness and the housing crisis.
We also passed a resolution asking the provincial and federal government to lift GST and HST on new homes up to $1.5 million. We've also asked the government at both levels really to prepare a strategy as we head into winter and cold months around homelessness and the additional concerns around mental health issues and addictions on the street, which are often very interrelated.
Mayor Kim Boshkoff calls the discussions invigorating. He says a key priority he raised for Thunder Bay was ensuring provincial programs also support medium-sized cities.
I mean, this is all cities over 100,000, so that we're there, but you're talking with cities also over 1 million. So, but I think this group of mayors is very cohesive in understanding where the province is trying to go and how the cities are going to get there.
Jessica Clement, TBT News.
Well, the housing crisis was also on the minds of those who attended a rally outside City Hall this afternoon. They want all levels of government to take stronger action to ensure an adequate supply of affordable homes. Emma Chilton reports.
Dozens of people gathered outside City Hall to demand that all three levels of government do more to tackle the affordable housing crisis. Kinetawaya Legal Clinic lawyer Matthew Jollinew helped organize the rally. He says having a full-time income isn't always enough for people anymore.
People who are living on social assistance, on Ontario Works, ODSP, simply do not get enough to be able to live, to be able to have a place to live. There's plenty of people who have income, have social assistance, but there's nowhere for them to go because there's nothing that they can afford. There isn't enough investment in subsidized housing to give them an affordable place to live.
The main focus has been on the homelessness, but it actually is affecting many different genres of housing. We're having unsafe housing for those that are housed, unaffordable housing, and then the market, there's just not enough available units available for people that can afford the rental market.
They say the lack of affordable housing is just as big an issue as homelessness.
We're here to call on all levels of government, not just the federal government, but the provincial government, which has the main responsibility for housing, and our municipal leaders as well, to exact more stronger change. We hear a lot of talk about the housing crisis and what government is doing to fix it, but where are the results? There are none. And so we need a lot stronger action. We need more investment. We need better policy to protect people, keep them in their homes, and get people off the street as well.
To do and what we expect them.
He sees the frustration every day from those who are struggling.
They're angry, they're frustrated, they're concerned, they're sad. They're all the kinds of things that you would feel when you yourself are struggling to pay rent or struggling to find a place to live, or you are living in a tent or have someone you know who's living in a tent. There's just so much frustration and anger and passion, but that's coming here today for some constructive action to call on the government to take stronger, proper action to actually address this issue.
Those who want to show their support can sign an online petition on the Kinetawaya Legal Clinic's Facebook page. Emma Chilton, TBT News.
Local tennis enthusiasts will have to wait a bit longer than expected for the bubble at Chapels Park. The Rogers Tennis Dome was supposed to be inflated this week, but mechanical and electrical issues have delayed that until December 1st. Tennis Center Director Jamie Grieve calls the delay disappointing, especially as the club works to sell memberships. Once the 42,000 square foot dome is inflated, it will have 6 tennis courts in total. One of those also converts into 4 pickleball courts. Despite the setback, Greaves is trying to stay optimistic.
You know, we're hoping for another green Christmas this year. Let's just say that, yeah. So obviously hoping for a warm November. Again, the domes can be erected in the wintertime. It's obviously more problematic. We get a lot of snow and stuff like that. So we're just going to hope for some good weather and that everything holds out for us. We got to get some luck sooner or later, right?
An Indigenous-led group is adding its voice to the chorus of people who continue to fight against the planned nuclear waste repository in the Wabigoon Lake Ignace area. Ninibwetamin Anishinaabeyaki, which translates to Stand Up for Our Land, is a group dedicated to stopping the transport of nuclear waste through the region. While Wabigoon Lake First Nation itself has given the project the go-ahead, many in neighboring communities and along the transportation route remain opposed to the idea.
So we're here to say that nuclear waste is not going to be buried in northwestern Ontario. We are not going to be the sacrifice zone. Proximity principle comes into play. Anishinaabe jurisdiction holders along the transportation route have not been consulted, have been ignored. NWMO is doing a classic divide and conquer, and that is not acceptable in this age of reconciliation.
For example, Eagle Lake First Nation is taking the NWMO to court over the decision to site a nuclear waste dump near Ignace. So this claim that there's broad consent for this is not accurate, in my opinion.
The Nuclear Waste Management Organization chose the Wabigoon Lake Ignace site last November and expects work to begin in 2030. October is well known as Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and a well-known local event was held today. Now in its 32nd year, the Luncheon of Hope is a long-standing tradition that supports breast cancer awareness. The Regional Health Sciences Foundation is hoping to raise $35,000 this year, and officials are optimistic they'll surpass that. Events manager Haley Herbowetsky notes the funds go to support cancer programs here in Thunder Bay and across the region.
Our cancer program is actually a regional cancer program, so these funds help not only our hospital, but the hospitals outside of Thunder Bay, close by, and things like the bus, where women from northern communities are not able to access healthcare as easily. The bus goes on up there and provides mammograms and really is a key feature for early detection and better treatment and better survival rates.
This event also has an important aspect for people in the community to get together to show very concrete demonstrating support for people who are finished their breast cancer journey, going through their breast cancer journey. And I think the feeling in the room is equally as important to the dollars that we raise.
This year's keynote speaker was Canadian TV personality, fashion editor and author Jeannie Becker, who's also a breast cancer survivor. All right, well, let's turn our attention to the weather now. And Haley, it was pretty wet out there at times throughout the day, but it seems like that's tapered off a bit and things are on the upswing, I suppose.
Absolutely. We're on the sunny side now. Right now is actually the nicest time of the day so far. We did have a rainy start, saw some showers overnight. It ran through most of the morning all the way till around noon. And then we had a mostly cloudy day. We even saw some mist early afternoon, but we warmed up quite a bit. We had a low of 9 and got all the way to 18, which is what we're sitting at this hour. And although we were mostly cloudy for most of the day, sky conditions right now are at their sunniest point. Winds, not too bad, all things considered. We had it as low as 4 kilometers an hour up into 27 kilometers an hour earlier this afternoon, but that's already dying down as well. And compared to other places in the region, it really wasn't that gusty. Now, when we look at the system that was moving through the area today, we saw it had a large stretch, but then around noon, it kind of split up into 2 different systems, made another cycle to the west, and then the second half moved out further east. And so right now, we're pretty in the clear. However, there is a slight chance of showers later tonight as well, because this system still might cycle and move. But right now, we're mainly clear for the most part. Now, clear of rain, I should say. Clouds are still covering a majority of the region. Now, areas to the west, they were at the windier side of things today. Now, when I said that 27 wasn't too gusty, that's in comparison to some areas. Kenora in particular was quite windy today. They saw winds from the southwest gust up to 55 kilometers an hour at times. So definitely a little breezier there, to say the least. And they actually had a high of 15 earlier today, and I say much earlier because their high was at 6 in the morning. So they've been cooling off. They're now at 10 degrees. Red Lake is also at 10. They had a high of 13 a little bit earlier. They saw light rain for most of the day, a slight break in the afternoon and a break right now. Fort Frances also saw light rain and mist, but they actually had a high of 18. Their winds were from the southwest and fairly gusty at times to around 45 kilometers an hour, so definitely feeling it there as well. And Dryden and Sioux Lookout both had highs of 16, but once again earlier in the day, they're already cooling off. However, elsewhere, they're seeing their highs of the day right at this hour, which is typical for this time of year. So 17 is the high for Atikokan, 16 is the high for Uppsala. Armstrong, they had quite a misty day. They didn't see as much consistent light rain. They were on the mistier side. And Greenstone saw their light rain mostly in the morning, and then they've just had a cloudy, overcast rest of the day. And along Lake Superior, temperature is pretty consistent for most of the day. Almost all of them saw highs of 14, which we're seeing in Nipigon and Wawa. Marathon just recently bumped up to 15 at this hour. And Sault Ste. Marie, they're currently at 13, and they've seen progressive clearing throughout the day as well. So they had some light rain in the morning, then they were cloudy, and now they're just mostly cloudy. As for Thunder Bay, tonight will drop down to 8 degrees, still significantly above a seasonal low, but still quite warm as well. So like we're in the single digits, but it's that nice in between. Mainly cloudy for the most part. We will have a 30% chance of showers this evening up until around midnight, so not too bad. And that will actually be the trend, that 30% chance of showers lingering for the rest of the night, Ryan. But really, for the most part, a fairly calm night, so we could be in the clear for a little bit.
I like to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot, Haley.